Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another session of the O'Dwyer's PR News webinar series. I'm Tony Cheevers, and I'm joined today by Curtis Sparrer. I want to say thank you to John O'Dwyer and the O'Dwyer's PR News team for hosting these ongoing sessions. And Curtis, thank you for joining and chatting with me today.
Well, I'm glad to be here. There's a lot to discuss.
Yeah, I saw GEO is making earned media more important as a headline, and Google's 25-year dominance of business search may be coming to an end. So what are companies doing?
They are really taking a look at everything. And I know that sounds pretty big, but I'm having companies come to us and talk to us about, hey, I didn't normally like PR, I didn't believe in it, but all of a sudden I see that I need it now more than ever so that AI will think well of me. What do I do? I am also seeing a lot of different executives say, hey, we normally would have a really thoughtful conversation about whether we should put a press release there or not. Now that there is AI reading every release, we are now publishing every release. And there are yet even other people coming to us and saying, we didn't used to publish stuff on the wires, but now that we're looking at how AI is reacting to it, and maybe it makes sense to publish on the wires. And all of this is kind of redounding to people asking, well, how could I be smarter about AI? How can I ensure that I'm showing up well in the queries that matter to me? And we've even used our own experiences with other companies to produce a new tool to help companies not only see how they're showing up in queries, but also how to improve things. Because we all know AI gets it wrong, and yet executives are saying that they use AI so much so that sometimes they will go with the very first recommendation AI gives it. And that means you're out of luck if things are not perfect on the back end.
So you said you're announcing a new tool. How does it work? Tell me more.
The tool is called Audit E. And obviously, it just rolls off the tongue as Audit E. And what Audit E does is it looks at 8 different AI engines and gives you a report, an audit, about how you are showing up in the queries that matter to you. And probably most importantly, it also tells you what steps you can do to fix it. And there is an example that really makes this come alive. We spun off RealSense from the company Intel. And as we were doing this, our audits were showing that there was some real negative connotations that the company was dead. And we did some digging and we discovered that there was this report that for some reason AI determined was incredibly credible, even though we humans knew that it was not. And so what that meant was that we had to do a whole remediation process. Part of that was creating new content that would help put this story in context. Part of this was creating FAQs and new schema so that we could further make AI friendly content to set the record straight. And then finally, there was the media efforts itself, where we secured 500 stories about their spinoff. All those efforts convinced AI that no, RealSense was not dead. But the challenge with AI is it's not automatic. It's not instantaneous. And so these are things that we had to bake in our process. But after we were on the other side of this episode, we thought, we should productize this because other people, other organizations are going to want to know, and other executives are going to want to be able to include this in reports. They're going to want to share this with their bosses, and they're not going to necessarily wait for the PR agency to go and furnish this back for them. And we did even further reflection and thought there are going to be companies that don't even need a PR agency or can't afford one yet, who will need this information to better showcase themselves online. And so that's when we thought, well, we should definitely make Audit E a product offering at Bospar, but we should also create a subscription model, one that is, cost friendly enough for the smallest businesses who need this help, but other more robust models that can help prepare reports that would be worthy of a board meeting.
It's interesting. I think you jumped to a question I was going to have is a lot of tools I see are built for enterprise clients, but it sounds like you have solutions across the board.
Yeah. And I think the thing is that the more sophisticated businesses get, the more looks they need. They're also probably going to be, looking at different verticals and different vertical searches. And so there's all sorts of ways to spec this out so that people are getting the right support. And there are going to be a variety of queries that we need to look at. There are also moments of self-reflection, really, for different companies where they think, well, how should I respond to this new challenge? And the thing is that with AI really prioritizing earned media placements, this has really been a great moment for PR agencies and those who practice media relations on a regular basis. But for companies that are thinking about what they can be doing themselves, there's a whole sort of different set of content activations that they need to be looking at. We met with one publishing company, and they were asking, well, what things would we need to fix? And we said, well, your about page actually is a real missed opportunity for most companies. And most companies are not prioritizing their about page, and they're not doing enough to ensure that they really show up well. And that was a big aha moment for that company. But that was also an aha moment for us as PR practitioners, where we could be really giving advice about things that you may not have considered in your overall visibility that you need to be looking at.
I think it's fascinating that you brought that up because it's come up in conversation this week. I'm at a number of events, and people's about us pages and FAQ pages are often stale and haven't been looked at. And until someone like you or your Audit E looks at it, they don't realize that there's information out there that's obsolete or incorrect.
And the incorrect information can really hurt you in the long run, as we've discovered. I think the other thing that we've discovered about how AI works is this really makes the errors and omissions function of PR truly important. Because in this instance with RealSense, here was a story a long time ago that actually was very problematic. But because humans thought of it as a small, no big deal thing, we didn't really realize how important it would be to correct the record for a small outlet that truthfully doesn't matter. But we're in a new world where AI doesn't have quite the human understanding we'd like it to. And so that makes protecting ourselves and really establishing our presence more on the AI engines so critical.
So you talked about, the Intel RealSense example, and you've tied it to PR in your comments. Since this is something you've productized, is it only for Bospar clients?
It will initially be just for Bospar clients, but we're going to be rolling out a subscription model by the end of the year, and that will be available for everyone. We're still figuring out pricing, of course. I want to make sure that there is a price point that's good enough for as many small businesses as possible, because I think that is a public service. And I also think that with AI becoming so critical that we cannot ignore it at any business level.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see where you take this for higher ed and not for profits and people who need to manage their reputation and news stories that may not seem important but suddenly get a lot of reads by AI. So I think there's an opportunity there, but as you say, the pricing is important. Um, can people see a demo, or do they wait till the end of the year, or where should people go for more information?
People should book a meeting with us. I'm pretty easy to find. I'm Curtis at Bospar.com. When I showed this, for example, to Rob Enderle, who is a tech analyst at the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal quote all the time, he just was floored. And he said, I can't believe that this is a PR agency doing this and not an AI company, because this is the level of thinking you put into this is really worthy of an AI company. And for us, it was a validation of what we're doing, but it was also proof that PR has a fundamental point of view that is important for companies, and companies need to understand that PR is going to matter more than ever because it's not just the public we're related to, it's also AI. And I think that was our explanation to Rob about how we built this out, is that we wanted to make sure that brands were really showing in the best way possible.
Just listening to you has made me wonder, what are the implications for internal comms or employee comms? Your data gets breached or things like that. Is there a play there for Audit E?
I think that there is a play for nearly every space in which AI touches. And we have started off with the things that have come up to us through client conversations where we know that this is a need. And I think the challenge is that with 8 different engines, there are going to be blind spots. The challenge is that the previous sort of science of this, search engine optimization, really was Google engine optimization, if we're going to be fair.
Yeah.
And and so you really only had to worry about one company and the changes it would make. And now with the wild west of AI, if you will, we have 8 different engines, 8 different ways in which people are solving these problems. And that means that there are blind spots that no one could anticipate. And even if you think you're doing good on ChatGPT, for example, DeepSeek is tremendously important and it's quite different. And so people need to think about that as they're thinking about their strategies. And to the point you brought about employee communications and internal communications, that too is going to figure in a way that truthfully, I think has not yet been completely figured out by anyone.
Yeah, I was at the Diversity Action Alliance GEMS event last evening, and obviously that's a very hot topic in 2025. Um, and news stories can be promulgated by an employee or promulgated by AI posing as an employee, or so I see a lot of interesting things that you could be doing there. So that just popped into my head while we were talking.
Yeah, and I think that is probably one of the best things about AI is that it prioritizes respectable earned media content. And that's important because anyone could put some Oppo research about anyone online, and AI is not going to be so easily fooled. Also, companies can put nearly anything about themselves online as well. And whereas AI is going to consider it, it's not going to be nearly as important as a respected media outlet. So I think that is the good thing about this, but I think this does show we still have to be careful and we still need to be monitoring every day what's going on.
So we've covered some really interesting topics. Are there anything that I should have asked that didn't ask, or any closing thoughts that you'd like to share?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we have seen is that the earliest adopters of AI are not who we would think. Usually we think of new technologies as being in the province of the youngest generation. And what we're seeing is people at the very top of the corporate ladder are indeed the heaviest users of AI and are reporting that they are using AI for their business decisioning, bypassing traditional means of research. And so that's why this is such a white hot priority. And since AI is fueled by media placements, that's why this is putting a new urgency on what PR now does.
I think that's a fascinating perspective because we are having a lot of conversations and people come with the anecdotal idea that AI is adopted by young people, new to the workforce practitioners, and your research is showing the opposite of that.
It is. It is showing that the C-suite is really leaning into AI. And the challenge is if AI gets it wrong, you might be out of luck. And that's why brands owe it to themselves to use auditing technology to ensure they're putting their best foot forward, no matter what AI venue it is.
Yeah, you remind me of the AI days when I worked in the government, and somebody would get their name on the front cover of the Washington Post because they spent $500 for a hammer uh, through the procurement process. And now that is amplified. You would know better than me how many times that you could get a story out there with your name on it, or your image, and it's a potential minefield.
Yes. And I think the minefields have multiplied tremendously.
Well, great. Any other thoughts you'd like to share, or?
I think that the best thing that you can do as an executive or as a PR person is start putting yourself in the AI engines and seeing what you can find. And that's really going to be the eye-opening thing that suggests you should look deeper at the sort of technologies there are. When I did it, I would then ask other questions. Well, what are the good things? What are the bad things? And I think that once you start looking for your own weaknesses, that's when you realize that you really need this kind of technology to support you.
And we all have been writing and posting for a long time. And it's funny you say that, because I remember when I did a search for myself, one of the first things it talked about is work I did with Richard Branson a long time ago. I'm like, that's very pertinent and interesting, but it's well out of date.
Yeah, and AI will do that. It will hold on to certain documents and reports that, for whatever reason, are seeming like outliers, just like in this real sense example. And so that's why understanding what AI is holding on to and how you could remediate that is critical.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time today. And you say people can reach out to you at curtis@bospar.com for a demo or more information.
Absolutely. I respond usually in minutes unless I'm asleep.
Great. Well, thank you again.
Of course.
I have